Hi, I'm Cheryl, and this is episode 5 of the Wholehearted Hub with Cheryl. We are kicking off a new month. It's February, and with that comes a new topic. As I mentioned in previous episodes, if you were here for those, we are going to launch into vulnerability and empathy. Really, we're going to start with vulnerability, and if you stay tuned, we'll get to empathy, but we're going to focus on one. And as we close out the month of fear's coming along with us. Because let's be real, fear is, as I've said before, fear is the root of so much work that I do, whether it be with my coaching clients or with organizational clients, with myself. Fear is really the root of so many of the things that we encounter or struggle with in our daily lives. And so fear is going to be our ride along as we go through all of these various topics. Um, and we'll work through it together. So we're still going to talk about fear a little bit this month, but we're going to start by ultimately talking about vulnerability. And I'm going to share with you how I view the difference between fear and vulnerability. Perhaps vulnerability is a fear for you. And then we're going to ultimately get through some action steps to come up with where in your life vulnerability creates opportunity for you. So, to get started, what is vulnerability versus fear? So, if we think about the definition of fear, which I don't think I described fear last time, or perhaps I did, fear is ultimately like a short term alert. It's an emotional response that comes up when you are threatened by something or you perceive that you are being threatened by something. And that threat could be a threat to your mental well-being, your physical well-being. Maybe you're not even aware of it. Perhaps your body has perceived or noted this threat, and so your palms are sweating or whatever your response is to something that you fear. But a fear is that short-term alert response to something that poses a real or perceived threat. Vulnerability, on the other hand, I describe as being open to or opening yourself to whatever that threat or perceived threat might be. It it could also be an emotion described as an emotion, same as fear, but I see it as the willingness to walk into or hand in hand with, or however you see it, I see it as the willingness and the courage to go into that fear, to expose yourself to it. So vulnerability is like an exposure. And perhaps you've never differentiated those things for yourself, but I think it's worthwhile in going through this episode to think about what are those differences for you. And ultimately, we want to talk about creating opportunity through vulnerability. We're going to walk through some actionable steps to find out what that opportunity is for you in vulnerability. So, step one is thinking about what is something that you want more of in 2024. Perhaps you set intentions or resolutions or whatever it is that you do for yourself. Maybe you set a word of the year. But step one is, what is one thing that you want more of in 2024? Step two is, what are what are some of the things or one thing that you fear in striving for that? So perhaps you go back to episode 1. For those of you who weren't here for episode 1, it was actionable steps to identify your fears. Maybe you bring in some of those step practices to identify, what do you fear in striving for this thing you want more of? What comes up for you? Identify that and acknowledge it. Step 3 is, what is one thing that you can do to open yourself up to more of that thing, to expose yourself to more of that thing, to be vulnerable to more of that thing? So if we pause here in the steps and we think about an example. Last month, we really were talking a lot about rejection and criticism. So perhaps the thing that you want more of, let's use me. Rejection is definitely something I fear. So perhaps something I want to open myself up to more of in 2024 is love. And perhaps in wanting more love in my life in 2024, in step two, identify that a fear that I have in seeking more of that is rejection. And so in step three, what is one thing I can do to open myself up to more of it? Spend more time with people that I want to create more love with, is put myself in more situations where I might be exposed to that. Spend more time with people that I am seeking that with. I'm seeking that belonging, that connection, that love with. Maybe it's spending more time with my family. Maybe it's spending more time with my romantic partner or with friends who perhaps I've lost connection with, um, that I seek more of. Step four, what will you feel when you get that thing or obtain more of that thing that you're striving for? What will you feel? So, if we go along with our example, I mean, I imagine that I will feel more love. I will feel more connected, belonging, perhaps love for myself, more nurtured, hopefully more joy, pleasure. And so, what will you feel? Sink into that. In imagining what you will feel, really sink into feeling more of it. Imagine it. Let yourself bask in it. Bask in what the feeling will be when you get more of what it is that you're seeking. Step five, what kind of support do you need to expose yourself to this, to step into these uncertain situations? Perhaps it's a person. Perhaps it's a totem. Like perhaps maybe if we use my example of opening myself up more to people that I seek love with, maybe I have a favorite sweater that I wear that makes me confident in uncertain situations. Or maybe there's a totem that you can carry with you, like a piece of jewelry or a medal of some sort or an heirloom, or maybe you talk to your best friend or a counselor. What is something that you can do, or what kind of support do you need in order to open yourself up to that, to be vulnerable in the way that you seek? And then step six, my last step is always going to be practice. How can you experiment more with it? What are the situations that can help you practice these things to get you more of what it is that you're seeking? It's all a practice. All of these things I'm putting out for you are just things to think about how you approach life differently, and what are some ways that you can practice exposing yourself to more of what you want in the world, because you can. So, the reflection that I leave you with today is, what vulnerabilities are you willing to practice to get more of what you want in life? Maybe write it down if you're a journaler. Do whatever works for you. Play with it. Have a little fun. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being vulnerable with me. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you'll never miss an episode. And I'm really interested in how we go along throughout February into more around vulnerability and empathy. And I'll see you next time.